Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Sweet Leet Roll. He says, Canadian Forces Loadout, the M16A4 with a folding grip, M145 L-can, the flash hider, and flashlight. Bonus points if you add a woodland camo on there. Sidearm is the P226 with heavy barrel and laser light combo. The gadget will be the medic bag and the DS3 decoy. For grenades, we'll be using the V40 mini grenades. Field upgrade offensive. Knife is the bayonet. Now, it's been a little while since I used the M16A4. This is a burst fire rifle, so it doesn't have that full auto capabilities. Technically it can shoot 800 rounds per minute, but unless you're tap firing at the perfect intervals, then you're going to be shooting a lot slower than that overall. The most effective range for this weapon is medium range. Longer ranges, it tends to suffer a little bit just because you're burst firing. Your follow-up shots tend to be a little bit less accurate, and it can be difficult to drop your target. So medium range is where you actually get the most effectiveness, the most bullet hits. Close quarters, the weapon can be fine. You'll probably be better off hip firing the gun, but you're not going to get that maximum rate of fire of 800 rounds per minute. So you'll be shooting a little bit slower, which is where the burst fire weapon becomes less than ideal in CQB. It's not to say the M416 can't be capable at close range or longer range, it's just best at medium range. Now, how about this specific loadout and how it fares, starting with the weapon attachments on the M16A4. The L-can or the M145 scope is pretty decent for this weapon. The medium range scope basically forces you to be more accurate. You have to try and engage at medium range with the scope, as it's just not really usable in CQB. If I had a red dot sight, I'd probably try CQBing with this gun a little bit more, and it's just not ideal for it. So the magnification on this sight is something I really don't have an issue with, as it sort of forces you into a situation where you have to use this gun at the ranges that it's meant for. That being said, if I do have to use a 3.4 times optic, I'm going to pick the PKA because it has minimal scope housing. The large scope housing of the M145 basically makes it so I can lose a lot of targets in that scope housing, so it becomes a little bit difficult when engaging multiple targets. One target, it's not really a big deal, but as soon as that second target pops up, or if you're trying to keep track of a second target while killing your primary target, this is where the M145 can be a little distracting. Now, when it comes to the angled foregrip, it's kind of interesting when applying to a burst fire weapon. Normally, all guns in the game, if they're not burst fire, have a first shot recoil multiplier. This means the first shot out of the gun is going to recoil more than other follow-up shots. This means that if you put the angled foregrip on there, it's going to reduce that first shot recoil multiplier and kind of even out the gun a little bit more. So it's not going to kick quite so hard with that first shot, making generally your follow-up shots a lot easier to get on target. Now, with burst fire weapons, that first shot recoil multiplier is actually applied to the last shot of the 3-round burst. However, the angled foregrip still affects the first shot of that 3-round burst. What does this actually end up doing with your accuracy? Well, it's going to give you 2 very accurate shots, and then your third shot is going to be fairly inaccurate. It's also going to bump the gun a bit after your third shot, so it's going to make your second follow-up burst a little bit less accurate overall. You're going to have to compensate and get quite used to basically that jolt after the first burst, and that's kind of my biggest issue with burst fire weapons, because generally speaking, the principle behind the burst fire is to give you a very accurate burst of 3 shots that can do high damage. But Battlefield 4, you need to burst fire people multiple times, whereas in real life, the function was designed to potentially take down a target with 1 burst. And if you had a follow-up burst, it's because you missed your first shot. So in Battlefield 4, you have to not only hit somebody with your first burst, but you have to hit them with your follow-up burst, potentially even another burst after that just to get a kill. So burst fire weapons kind of lose their points a little bit in Battlefield 4. At one point in time, though, they did make more sense, especially when this gun did 25 damage maximum. That meant you could actually shoot somebody in the chest twice and then once in the head. So if your burst kind of carried your recoil up, you got 2 chest shots, upper chest shots, and then 1 headshot. You could kill somebody with 1 burst fire. Then again, it generally had to be in very close quarters for that to work, but it was kind of a cool principle. Now I did notice while playing with this loadout that I was conserving my ammo generally better than I do with other kits. I was engaging targets mostly at medium range, not wasting my shots at those longer range targets, and making sure that I basically had my crosshairs on target before firing. The burst fire basically allows you to check to see if your target's dead after every 3 shots, whereas with full auto weapons sometimes you'll go through over half your magazine before you let off the trigger, and your target will have been dead well before you even let off the trigger. Could have been 10 rounds you fired after killing your target, just because the full auto weapons are a little bit trickier to control your ammo usage. Now as for the sidearm, I really love the P226. I think it's a cool pistol in real life. It's a fun pistol to use in game, and I just recently got my mastery tag with it, so I've basically used the heck out of the sidearm even outside of loadouts. Gadget wise, I'm really liking the med bag, especially after the latest patch. It heals you faster after you've been suppressed now, so it's kind of back to its old self, if you will. Using the DS3 decoy, I just didn't find that useful. I don't think it's that great of a gadget, just because you can't really throw it that far away from you. So you kind of chuck it and it tells the enemy team that somebody's there, but if you can't progress or move up, and I was trying to play a lot of rush games, at points the DS3 decoy just was not useful at all. It told the enemy team that there was somebody in my general area, and then they would basically look for that target and end up shooting at me anyway, so I didn't have too much luck with it. I feel like the DS3 decoy would be much more useful on Conquest, and unfortunately I just didn't get into any good Conquest games while trying out this loadout. The mini grenades certainly came in handy, and what I like about the mini grenades is they're focused a little bit more on getting somebody out of their hiding spot rather than killing your enemies straight up with grenade explosive power. They don't do enough damage to one-shot somebody. Sure, they can finish them off if they're already hurt, but generally speaking, it just forces your opponent to get out of a certain area. It's a great way to force campers out of areas, and then you can pick them off when they're trying to run out from behind their cover. The offensive upgrade certainly works with this loadout. I like the faster movement speed right off the bat, and then the second upgrade is extra ammo, so I love that upgrade for basically playing TDM style game modes. Since you are being forced to engage at medium range, the defensive upgrade isn't quite as useful, but I have to say defensive is still probably one of the best field upgrades out there, just universally speaking, because a lot of times it allows you to tank 1 extra shot. And really, if you're playing the medic class, you have to look at its 1v1 potential. As long as you can survive a 1v1 duel, all you gotta do is throw down another med bag, recharge to full health, and engage another target. If you run into multiple targets, that's an entirely different situation, but in that 1v1 game mode, the medic is king, and as long as you're running defensive perk, you have a much higher chance of surviving that 1v1 face-off. Now the M16 is making a reappearance in Battlefield Hardline, however it is the full auto version, and it's an absolute beast, probably one of my favorite guns in BF Hardline. It's funny just how much better a full auto version can be for somebody who really knows how to control that recoil. It becomes good in close quarters, medium range, and even long range. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of Loadout. The M16A4 can be good, but it is a high skill requirement to do well with this weapon setup. As always guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave your comments down below letting me know to run for next week's episode, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.